In this day and age, it's hard to come by any form of studio or company that has not taken the aspect of turning everything into a connected universe, with such aspects like the MCU, of course, being the staple of it. That has seen a bit of a rough mixed patch of late the last two periods, but I think they've seen improvements. We've seen some of the likes of anime films from Pixar, some being connected to the universe, you know, the Pixar theory and stuff like that, which is an intriguing one. Even to a connected universe that was just announced as of this year, of the universe of Winnie the Pooh being a sadistic murderer and his public domain friends. But today's review, we're talking on the one film that brings to the end of initial planned arrival to the MCU, and that has been all over the place, of course. That is with the DC Extended Universe. Now, from about 2013 up to the end of last year, it's been shown that the likes of this studio had somewhat of a vision that got lost in translation, and some part of it appealed by the release of the first film of Man of Steel, with some aspects of Superman being a bit more grim, killing his villains, and even morally questioning if saving people is a decision he should do, did bring a lot of debate, and then also a community of people together thinking, you know, edgy Superman is tight. Now, initially the planned universe was first conceived with Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer when they hit a roadblock while writing the conclusion of the Dark Knight trilogy, and create a story on Superman that in the process would get some slight altercations by the time the film entered production. After its mixed reception, it saw a balance of a universe conceived at first of 5 films by a director that loves his slow-mo of Zack Snyder, one that I will delve into a lot more when I talk about Rebel Moon, a massive amount of studio interference that affected a lot of the films, where some may be minor and some more than been butchered to having supposedly 22 different versions of one film, and still turned out a mess. Behind the scenes dramas, shakeups, and in-universe time travel using the Speed Force led to the universe being reset with a new planned structured universe being run now by James Gunn and Peter Safran. But I could go into all of that original DCU and talk about it, but I will save that for my own separate video of the rewatchathon of the complete 16 films and the 1 season of TV show, which is also getting a second season, but that's now confirmed for the DCU. And instead, I'll be giving thoughts on the last of the films from this DCU by starting with the very last film, and will possibly give thoughts on the other one, which is the one about the Beetle, and today we are delving into the sequel to the highest grossing film of this cinematic universe, which is with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Now, this came out back at Christmas and released a couple of weeks ago on Blu-ray and DVD and digital, and after a couple of delays was initially planned for release the previous year, but got moved around with some of the other projects, as well as some behind the scenes drama with budgetary issues, test screenings, and a legal issue of one of the actors in particular. I will probably delve a little bit on that later, but I'm here to ask the question if this film is good. Well, I see the elements of this in some entertainment value from this film, though it does have some of its issues, and I'll delve into that when we talk about it in this review.
I hear you can talk to fish.
So we'll give a little context about the character and where we last left off with him in particular. So we've been introduced to this character properly in the Justice League film as a half-human, half-Atlantean, and in those films he joined forces with the other heroes like, you know, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg, and eventually, of course, Superman to stop Steppenwolf from retrieving the mother boxes for Darkseid and use the anti-life equation to destroy the world. Now, in the case instance, he was also introduced in Dawn of Justice, but only for like a brief teaser, which feels a bit odd in case just like you introduce the characters, set them up in emails, and then after the movie comes out you just drop a solo film for him, but okay. So following this, we then get more of the origins of his powers and how, with the assistance of Mera, will stop his half-brother Orm from wiping out humanity, even though the reasons of pollution of the waters does make sense of why he has a bit of a grudge against the surface and wants to unite the 7 seas. Find out what happened to his mother, recover the ancient artifact of the Golden Trident, defeats his brother, and becomes the new king of Atlantis. After this, we see him appear in some small cameos in both Peacemaker and The Flash, which he did make a joke about how, you know, Aquaman likes to have sex with fish. Is this the Kanye West song again from South Park? But that does not add much substance to those roles, and this is where we find ourselves now. So the plot of this one is more of a solo focused story with more possible world ending consequences, but it goes as follows. After failing to defeat Aquaman the first time, Black Manta wields the power of the mystic Black Trident to unleash an ancient and malevolent force. Hoping to end his reign of terror, Aquaman forges an unlikely alliance with his brother Orm. Setting aside their differences, they join forces to protect their kingdom and save the world from irreversible destruction. destruction. Now, the basis of this story and plot for this one may not be the most original stories. Of villain obtains a powerful weapon that unleashes a dangerous power and the heroes must stop them and save the world, but I can at least respect the case of building on more of the deep mythos of the world under the ocean with new worlds and locations to explore, and sort of building on a villain that was only really more of an adversary in the first movie, because we did see Black Manta in the first one, but he's kind of more of a like a lieutenant for Orm in that movie. So sure, it could have been a lot more intricate and detailed, but I think it was probably more decent that it was more of a contained story and branching out to the convoluted timeline stuff the DCU has itself in that as of late, as was where it was a fine story, and in a case it could have just been chock full of cameos, and there might have been a different story in the different cuts they made, but who knows. So score wise, I'm looking between around 5.5 to 6. It's just kind of a basic kind of standard okay story.
You that fish boy from the TV?
Now, the likes of any film, that they will have a lot of optional choices of different characters that will help to move the film along from the start to the end, and there is a few characters to discuss about, with some having bigger roles than the others, and I will focus on the small handful of giving them a focus for this one. So let's start with the main man himself, the King of Atlantis, Aquaman, or Arthur Curry. Now, it has been known for years that this character has been the butt of jokes, that his only power is to talk to fish, things that they also brought up in the Justice League, and I think it was a few other times anyway. And it's a case that he does not add much to the team, consisting of an indestructible object, a detective in a bat costume, an Amazonian warrior, and other heroes, but along came Momoa and made the character cool. And for most of this film, having an appealing main character helps at least keep the plot moving forward, helps teach him many moral lessons about themselves that they must have been neglecting, a case about, being a leader as well as being a parent for his new son of Arthur Jr., I think is what his name is or something, but that's what I got anyway. And find out on the hero's journey. I think for what it's worth, it helped to keep the film afloat. I think usually Momoa actually helps save this movie. He's probably the highlight of the movie. As for next, we'll talk on the other leading character in this film in particular, and that is with Arthur's half-brother, Orm. Now, we know him as the villain of the first movie, or Oceanmaster as well, and since the end he's spared his life and imprisoned him in a dry cell, but soon realizes that he'll have to team up with his half-brother to stop Mera and his dark trident. Now, I do think that he's a compelling character in the first, and I will say that if anything that I like the dynamic between the two of them in this, it's the basic concept of sibling or rival forced to team up and take on a great enemy and learn to respect one another along the way, and to its credit, it works well in this piece that some of the dialogue can be a little iffy or a bit all over the place, but I enjoyed the performance of the two for what it's worth, and learning from each other along the way helped to better understand each film, and I think that's where these two that are the highlights of the characters in the films that help balance it just a little more. Now, on a character that's often known as the probably most known villain for Aquaman, and that comes in the form of Black Manta. Now, we got some bit of background to his character in the last film, that this was him seeking revenge against the merman for leaving his father to die in the sinking ship, and then teamed up with Orm to try and stop him, but that didn't last very long and he was out for the count. I don't know how he survived getting, yeeted off a cliff and got absolutely pummeled going down. How he survived. Comic book logic, I guess. And, shortly after setting up the sequel. Now, we finally got to see him as a villain more in this film rather than a muscle for hire. Granted, there is still a small element of that in this, with the dark trident influences mind to restore the power back to his frozen kingdom, but it's still more than enough that it would give him some sense of reasoning to do so, that he will gain great power but also kill the man that took the life of his father. I will say I like him a bit more in this, but then again, he does not do much besides build up sealing reserves across the different kingdoms, use the trident in great power and causes casualties and damage along the way, and just, kind of case look menacing. Could he have been better? Sure, he could have, but I would have feel that he probably may have been better through all the messiness that went on behind the scenes making this film. So I could have worked more, but he felt he did what he could and with what was provided. So, he's fine in this. So on the basis that at least have some form of character in this is a minor character that gets a little bit of a bigger role from the previous movie. He's only really in like 2 or 3 scenes in the last one. And that's with the character of Stephen Shin. He's played by Randall Park. Now, he has been assigned and teamed with Mantra to find some powerful readings and ways for his suit to be rebuilt after the attack in Sicily, and it becomes apparent that he is really here as a lackey as well as give the exposition to the audience of Mantra's plan. And while he does have a redemptive moment near the end, it feels a little forced, and in most cases he's just here as simply as to exposit the information of what you expect through the film and the characters, but he's a harmless character and he can get a pass. Now, one other character that has made a return to the series in the form of Arthur's father, and while he may be a little more of a background presence, he does at least have some moments with his son, and they have some little heart-to-heart moments and words of encouragement. The while they can be seen as tacky and kind of like, you know, the expositional wise leader kind of thing, and just place for giving some advice, I think he's having them there get some like reasonable fine balance of being there for Arthur and to be a secondary guardian to his and Mera's new child, so I think it sort of works there. Okay, let's get this one wrapped up, and you're probably thinking, was I going to talk about this? I'm going to talk about this, and this is mainly going to be discussed, but let's address the elephant in the room with the character of Mera. Now, for those unaware, this film at first was initially anticipated before all of that rumored stuff involving the actress came to light, where it would soon be proven to be a televised trial that she was not telling much of the truth or twisting the truth with her partner when it came to the likes of abuse with her former partner of Johnny Depp, which saw him being dropped by different films and brands, like he was Grindelwald in Fantastic Beasts, and we all know how that third movie came about, besides the stuff with J.K. Rowling and stuff like that, but yeah, besides the point. What followed from the first news was for many people petitioning for her to be removed from the film, a petition that would go on to garner more than around 4 million signatures, I think, as of recording this. But it seems to be a case that she would stay on, but will still appear in the film, just in a more reduced role. Now, her scenes in this are, like, mainly she's just in there and in the background for most of these scenes, like, I'm pretty sure she has like 2 lines. Probably just says Arthur and probably some bit at the end. That's really it. And in most cases, she appears brief moment at the beginning, gets nearly killed by Mantra around the middle point, and then disappears until briefly near the final battle, and that's about it. It becomes a point that if they removed her from the film, besides say that one scene in the middle, it would not make much of a difference to the movie. I know comparing to her role in the first, but in that one, it's a bit more of a character that provides a lot more exposition in the first movie, where like Stephen Shin's character was in this, and that is really it. So in general, her role is just that of, you know, And lastly, for the other characters in this film, there's mainly the likes of 2 others that I can at least acknowledge that have some form of presence in this, and that is with Arthur's mom Atlanta and one of the other rulers of the 7 kingdoms of Nereus. Now, both of them are just characters that are really just added in for the likes of helping moving some plot along, where Atlanta shows up maybe once or twice to explain where Aquaman can find Orm, and to care for her land husband when some dire circumstances occur, and then Nereus is mainly there to make jokes with some ruler of a crab nation and help them to fight towards the lost kingdom and stopping Mantra, as well as trying to deal with respecting Orm in the process. And while they help a little, it becomes a feeling that they are just there to have them still in the film, which I find also strange as well, because Willem Dafoe was also cast in this film as his character from the first movie, but then just kill him off off screen by specific illness and just expect that people will be fine with it, which is annoying, because it's the kind of case thinking, why just kill off the foe? Man will chew the scenery to be in movies like this. I feel maybe they had more of a presence in earlier cuts, but I guess they were reduced down in favor of the sibling dynamic, but I have no idea. It also comes to the effect that we were initially planned for film to have a cameo from the Caped Crusader himself, as one of the Batmen were supposed to appear in some form, and it was the first Ben Affleck, then it was with Michael Keaton, and then it was Affleck again, and then somewhere along the way the entire cameo was cut, and it does not make me wonder. It does make me wonder what was the scene in particular, but I guess will now become part of the lost media. If anyone knows, can let me know down below or something like that. But overall, I think in relation to the likes of the characters in this film, some of them do help keep it afloat, with the main 2 leads helping to prove some decent dynamic, the villain being a bit more better than in his first appearance, and some smaller roles that are fine but feel a little under needed. But from what it's worth, it's a fine selection. So score wise in the characters, I'm thinking around between 6 and 7. We'll decide then. Now this section I can give a fair bit of praise to in terms of the world building and presentation, as for what it's worth, the expansive look at the worlds and cities hidden in the very vast deeps of the oceans do look really great, and are a lot more appealing than the likes of the stilted locales of cities and buildings you would see from some of the other heroes, and the likes of the vibrant neon-like colors and buildings and locales based on designs of some underwater creatures, or like, you know, flora and shit like that kind of thing, is really interesting. And I find it more cases seen as like a near advanced civilization, like kind of like an retro futuristic technological advancements. Looks really cool, and would have to give props to the artists that came up with the concepts and designs to the city of Atlantis or any of the other 7 kingdoms. And also extended to the likes of the looks and designs of the characters when in comparing them to the likes of their comic counterparts. They have their own unique aesthetic, but also having some of the look of the original designs of the outfits. In particular with Aquaman and Mera, where they have a nice new upgraded look to the classic outfits that look more armor form and functional, and that's more like an outfit for a Pilates class, and I think it's a nice balance of the tones in the outfits and looks they keep it close to the original. And as for the other respects of the source material, it is a basis that it does not go too heavily on the likes of the tones with the talk to fish aspect, but there is elements in there and they use them sparingly. And it works to their favor. I think it's like the beginning, there's maybe a little bit in the middle, and then near the end when they're, heading towards the final battle kind of thing. And, I like the element of the world building with the lore and rivalry, and while I may not know too much on the comics in particular kind of thing, I think it feels like a solo focused story is more simple and less convoluted as the likes of a weird alien invasion or a multiverse disaster, so I think in all efforts, it's fine. So give this one a score presentation wise, I'm gonna say 7 to 8. Now, on the likes of the focus aspects will come in the form of the writing, and in all of the case, this is where an aspect of it feels a little all over the place sometimes. Now, it may not saying that the writing of this film is gone awful or anything, it's that it may have needed a little more structure and development to help flesh it out a bit more, but if I do like a bit of it, with the likes of the world building, with some of the lore of the ancient kingdoms and the Dark Trident and morphing it to the likes of it, the connections to the characters and all, but some of the writing comes in the expense of trying a bit too hard with the likes of the comedy aspect, where I could see some of the attempts with the comedy, and it could work now and again, but a lot of time it does feel like a bit flat, but I can see the lengths of the attempt that was made. I also feel sometimes the charisma for Aquaman can affect a little of the serious nature of some aspects, but it's not an overly concerning as the other elements, and doesn't happen too much. I think in some capacity I just feel like Jason Momoa, like this last year, he was the villain in Fast X, who's like the best thing of that one, and now he's like the hero in this one kind of thing, and like he's just like a surfer dude, and it's like I like that kind of aesthetic. The other elements don't happen too much. It does once or twice get out close a few times, but I think they stop at a point to make it too unbearable. I'm sure given a lot more of a rewrite and structure, it may have helped a little more, but I think it's fine enough in writing in general. So writing, I'm gonna say around 5 to 6, probably around that point. Quick fly on the music there. Music is fine enough as well. I haven't really delved too much into it. It is some similar aesthetics to the last one. It's a lot more of like a pop track mix as well in some capacity. There's a few like kind of rock songs in there. There's a few kind of like, classics from like the 70s and the 90s kind of thing. There's like Born to Be Wild. There's like the bow down. I think there was the bow down. I think there was that one. I don't know. But I like the kind of neon aesthetic as well kind of thing with the soundtracks. But that's really it.
Dude, will you stop with the water?
I forgot I have that archival footage. I should see what else I have, like, hidden in the vaults somewhere, of course, from the old days of when I had less of this. Of course, like any project, it goes without saying that no film goes without some form of critique. Even great films have the minor flaws, of course. And this film, of course, has flaws and critiques that can be a little bit of an issue that could be worked out if given the chance to, and help make it an even better film than it was. And in general, we'll give my thoughts on these down below. So starting on story, in most cases, it's the element of the likes of story being something we've seen plenty of times before in the past. I feel the likes of maybe structuring it more of a serious tone that they had initially been going for, and less like over like mixed comparatively, given that more focused lessons behind the scenes drama that may have affected it, as well as from like the poor test screenings, the possible studio interference, they may have been affected them having another peeling hill on their hands, and they probably just want a bit more of a lighter tone. Kind of there's enough of a fair balance to where it can work. Sometimes it feels a bit like For Love and Thunder in that sense, where like you have a serious villain like Gore the God Butcher, but it's mixed in a bit with like some overdoing of the comedy of Taika Waititi's comedic timing and stuff like that with Thor. But to be fair, I do like Ragnarok. I do like Love and Thunder a bit, not as much as Ragnarok, but I do love Love and Thunder. But yeah, I feel like if they hadn't balanced it a bit, it would have another hit on their hands and help the DCU stronger. But it's hard to say if this was even the story from the outset, or if there was more to it that may have been made a little bit better. It may have been lost in translation, but who knows. On characters wise, I feel besides Aquaman, Orm, and Mantra, the other characters could have been developed more and given a better focus and use in this film, and feel like they are there just to be recognizable faces for the big cast of the film, and some that either could have sat this film out or even given more context and acknowledgement for other characters instead of just saying they died off screen or where they're off to for most of it, and not do anything to make up for that. And I feel they could have structured these characters a bit more for the likes of using them more and more, and probably better in the sequels, but who knows. Maybe they could return in the future films, but I have no idea. Now actually, with presentation, there were some 2 points that I forgot to bring up in the case of this film, and it's mainly the case of pacing and some bits with visuals. It has a case that a lot of films feel like it's on a speed run a lot of time, that it has gotten through these elements that we start with the battle scene and it jumps through what was the character's been up to since we last appeared, and I've seen a lot that really wants to cut through some elements like the breakout of Orm or finding the locations of Mantra's secret weapon cache layer, just as sped through to them being there without seeing a lot of the other stuff. And while I can appreciate the likes of making it a rounded out runtime, I think it was like under 2 hours, it can affect the likes of development and possibly could use having a bit of an extensive time added onto it, but that could be a mixed result as well. The unknown piece, of course, is the visuals that, while it is not terrible, there are signs of some visual effects that don't look fully finished or rendered, and I do not know what it is, but something about like the hair movement in water, like in this film, looks really weird. It looks like it's not fully rendered. Sometimes it is, sometimes it looks really kind of weird, like it looks a bit blocky, but I don't know. It may be just to do a case where it looks a little plasticky as well. It may just with the characters that have long hair, and in most cases, most of them have a bit of long hair. I feel the case if I was underwater, I'd probably have the similar situation, but who knows. I feel this maybe got mixed in everyone looking the same, but that it affected one or two of them, but it's a small nitpick, so to say. Again, not all bad, but there are some noticeable elements here and there. And in the case of the writing, most of this ones seem tonal issues and the likes of trying a bit with the comedy that it either falls flat here and there or tries too hard, and the tonal mix can be a bit of an effect. But it's just the small inconsistencies that have been needed in another draft or going over it a bit, but it could have been majorly affected by the changes in the development and the messy creation, test screenings, and everything like that. So that's really all the critiques I can have about this movie.
Splish splash, I was taking a bath.
In the end, through the extensive journey of the last 10 years, you know, the messy planned universes, concepts, studio meddling, fan campaigns where they might get a bit of excessive fan campaigns sometimes, and a few releases moved around to end in the ocean, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom turned out into a film that had its potential from the original success that got a little muddy with the change of the future of the franchise to the outcome of the film that came to be by its release. Is it perfect? No. There is some fair amount of issues, but is it god-awful or terrible? No, it's far from unwatchable or god-awful. Buoyed by a likable lead and a decent dynamic and a story that is more self-contained and a massive multiversal connective story, it serves it more as a simple fun jaunt with a character that had every right to fail as the most joke character of the comics and made him the most cool looking that gave their best with the outcome of what they got from the mess up behind the scenes issues and dramas to come out of with a film that may not be great, may not be terrible, but a film that I think is a decent time of a watch that I had a lot more potential but felt like a modest effort of a swan song to what would become of the DCEU. And something I probably would watch now and again if it's on. I might throw it on now and again, who knows. So final scores, I gave the story around 5.5 to a 6, characters around 6 to a 7, presentation is 7 to an 8, and writing and humor to around 5.5 to 6. So totaling out of 40, I have a score of 24 to 27 out of 40, or around 60 to 67.5. So around a C plus grade. So it's not bad. That's a decent score. That's like a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's kind of an instance I see there. Like a C grade is reasonable enough. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you have seen this movie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the whole duology in particular down below in the comments, and would love to know what your favorite film from the DCEU is in general. I think in mine, I'd have to maybe say the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn version, or I like the Snyder cut. I think it could be a little long, but it's good. And I like the first Wonder Woman. And the first Aquaman, for sure. But yeah, as always, I hope you all stay being wonderful people, because you all are wonderful people, and have a great day every day, and I will see you all in the next review, or next video, of course. So, take care, everybody, and goodbye.